Hey there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hey everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody. I think we have enough people to get started.
Mhm.
Um, so I'd like to call this meeting of the Branding Committee to order at 12:03 on the 21st, and I'll ask for a roll call at this time.
Right here.
Maureen McGarrett Hall here.
Molly Robinson here.
Chris Martin here. Kate, you there?
Kate? Anybody? Nate Shattuck here.
And it looks
Alice.
like Kate is unmuted, but we're not hearing you, Kate.
I think we'll just note that Kate is on here, but we can't hear her. So,
But yeah, okay.
okay. All right. At this point, I know we don't have any minutes to review. I think we'll defer that till the next meeting because I think we'll have three sets or so at that time once we do that. I'd like to move along to the the branding project updates. And first, on a personal note, I want to say that I feel like we're in a pretty good place and pretty proud of everything that's come together here as a group and as a committee, and all of you. Everybody's done a bunch of hard work here to make this happen. So kudos to everybody. So with that, I'm not sure what we need to do and next to keep going.
There's still some to do. So we can start off with like a recap of the select board meeting for those that weren't there. I don't know, maybe Nicole, do you want to, or Jen, want to share in the meeting?
I would like to make a comment on that. I just, on behalf of myself, would like to apologize for that meeting the other night. There was a lot of confusion as to what was going on regarding the new select board members getting sworn in. We weren't really clear on how much time we had, and so that meeting was incredibly rushed and chaotic, and I just want to apologize for that. Normally we don't rush. Normally we actually belabor things beyond the point that we usually need to, and that I just want to apologize to the committee because we are really appreciative of the work that was done. And like I said in the meeting, I'm really proud of the logo that we have. That's all.
I felt worse for Cliff.
Yes. And he will be getting an apology from me as well. That's not how we like to do things.
Communications has already reached out to him to make sure we get his full story and we get that online. So whether or not he shared it at the select board meeting, he'll have his day.
Just for clarification, we on the select board got a full, like a 4-pager that we got to read ahead of time, which I know you guys did not have access to. So we actually did understand the background of what he was trying to accomplish. So please just don't take it that we thought this was not important. That was not the case at all.
Well, thank you, Nicole and Jen. So we presented a little bit of context and background to the select board. Kate did our introduction. Maud gave some framing and context. I shared about the community engagement process, and Katie walked through design process. And there was some discussion, and the logo passed. So we have a logo, and we also were given the go-ahead to build out the visual identity toolkit using that logo. So this committee has jurisdiction moving forward about the other elements that we're going to be discussing here. So, we talked about small icons, social media icons that are going to come as a result. And today, Katie is with us again, going to show us some of the circle icons, like the smaller versions of that logo that this committee gets to decide on and share back with everybody else, probably through Kate when the rollout happens. So I'll pass it over to Katie, and then we can discuss.
Let me share my screen.
Well, prior to while you're doing that, Katie, just real quick, Danielle, what is the timeline moving forward now that we have the logo, and what do we have to do?
So we need to decide on some of the other key elements, which Katie is going to share with us today. Our hope is that we can have confirmation on those elements in this meeting, and we'll send this whole package over to Stantec. Once Stantec has this, then they can start their part of the process. They already have this logo, but there are other elements that they are going to need as well. Then Katie is going to start, in collaboration with Kate, building out all of the elements. So the committee doesn't, I don't think, need to really weigh in on, the version of this that will have school or police or hospital or whatever, but we'll see the templates, approve that. And then Katie still has a lot of design work ahead. There's still like a lot of creation that happens from here. So Katie will do that in collaboration with Kate, who gives helps put together a checklist of what we need. Then we'll come back together and discuss the rollout of it. And simultaneously, we will be working on the seal. Okay, so pass to Katie.
So here's what was approved. So here's our final logo. Everyone can see it, I assume, on my screen. Just kind of some thoughts of what I did in between our meeting and then select board with adding the gazebo. I kind of messed with the spacing slightly. Don't want to give too much away yet. Of the, I guess the railing, just to make sure that from far away it doesn't get too detailed. That was kind of the primary thing I did. I widened a couple lines just again to clean it up and make sure that it was legible. But other than that, I believe everything was the same from what you all saw. So kind of moving to our circle logos. So at the top is based on the new final logo. The bottom is what I had shown you previously as an idea or concept a couple meetings ago. So this is kind of the biggest thing to discuss today. My thought kind of behind how I set this one up was ensuring that the Quabbin stayed by itself, because I had split it up at one point and people were concerned it looked more like a river. So that's kind of why it's in front, and then the hills. Another thing with the gazebo, it gets a little bit wonky and tricky when you put something behind it. Because of those railings, it gets very detailed. So I wanted to make sure that it stayed separate. So again, that's kind of why there's a little bit more white space at the top. Because I did try and bring in that other tree but to me, at this point, it needs to stay especially clean and clear when it's going to be used on the smaller version. My last note I'll add is I would highly debate getting rid of the weather vane on this logo because of the tightness and smallness of it. But those are my thoughts and my reasoning. I'll open up to discussion for this portion.
I have a quick question. Is that a circle or an oval? I don't know if my eyes are playing tricks on me or.
It is a circle. It is a circle.
Thank you. And I am in favor of pulling the weather vane off on this version, especially as you start downsizing it. I think it's going to get kind of blend into the curve, but I'm interested to hear what others have to say.
I'm just curious on the balance of the size of the gazebo. And yeah, I'm fine about the weather vane, even though I feel like it is an element. Was it better? Is that how you worked on it? I guess the question is did you obviously try other ways to balance out the barn and the gazebo, with the gazebo being the most prominent? Yes.
I did. Do you guys want to see my, I know you like to see my fun.
Yeah,
draft.
I do.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, because I do like it. I'm definitely, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I played with, you can kind of see the mess of it here. Kind of the barn larger, putting the quabbin in the back. But the tough thing is the gazebo because it's so see-through. Once you start moving things, it gets very complex if something's behind it. But yeah, these are a couple ways that I played with it.
Like that bottom right one, is that the one that we're working with?
No, we are working with this one here.
Okay.
We see a black and white of it as well.
I have this version.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think just single color is helpful.
Yep.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's a really good job distilling the elements down to these core few. Is there a way to see like the approximate, like how would it look in context with something where we would need to use this? Like how small does it need to be? And how big does it need to be? But small is probably important.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll kind of go back. Okay, can you see the original screen now?
Yeah.
So this is kind of some past stuff that I was playing with, and this is my recommendation as far as like if we use it for these sub logos. I think Molly, I guess, and Kate chime in what you think as well, but I would think kind of social media icons and then potentially on ways it needs to be laid out like this, but I don't see, and maybe in the signage if they decide to use it in any way, but I'm not sure what else it would really be.
So I'm not sure what you mean by social media icon because we have so many different departments, and I don't think I don't know. What do you mean by that?
I guess I mean
Belchertown Rec's Facebook page. What circle?
I guess I mean more the primary towns like profile picture.
Okay.
Just be this.
Yeah, so what I also need is something for like Belchertown Rec to use on their Facebook page.
Yeah,
and
I think
that isn't apparent in that circle, and I don't think just having different color circles is going to be the way to go, because one, I think we have more pages than colors, but also the average user isn't going to know the difference between the two. So I think we need to look at something within that circle that lets people know that it's Belchertown Rec versus.
To be fair, when we're basing a lot of this off of the Amesbury, project where that's sort of where we got the idea that we could run with this and make it happen fast. And their solution very much was just changing colors between the different departments. Which I think is something that we could do. Like I struggle to see the opportunity to take the elements that we had and arrange them in such a way that is easy and recognizable and and at the same time different and independent for each department, right? I think that that is a very large ask.
We have more departments than elements in the logo too.
Right. And I realize that there could be a swap of like, okay, this one has these two elements and this one has these two elements, but I feel like that is getting way too granular.
Yeah, that was not, I don't think, kind of part of the scope as far as like creating new illustrations for each one.
Yeah, that's totally understandable, and that may be something we have to work on separately. Because we also need to make sure that we're having full buy-in from those departments too. Like we don't want to come in with a strong fist and be like, this is what you have to use now. Like it needs to be some sort of collaborative effort.
And part of the value of the brand is that there is consistency, right? Is that all of the different departments are actually using this same icon. And the thing that makes them distinct is the text that shows that this is a different Facebook page, for example. So it's the icon on the Facebook page. And honestly, like part of the rollout is it can be to make that optional, right? And Kate, like you know your colleagues better than anyone. Like some folks might be really eager to update their Facebook icon, others might not, and that's okay. But I think having the option to have consistency across the sort of like circle icon is part of the value of a brand, is that consistency.
Well, can I now? Wouldn't this be part of a select board conversation about how this is going to roll out or be implemented? You know, the point of having a logo is to have, you know, synergy amongst the departments and stuff like that. So the definition of how it's going to be used and what we have to come up with here, somebody kind of has to direct that, right?
Well, that was part of the decision that they made.
What's that?
Sorry, that was part of the decision that they made on Monday. Was that like we would follow through and you know they've approved the initial logo and any of the follow through is on us. That we would come to them with the continued branding recommendations.
So we need to come up with some sort of guidelines for its usage so that it's not distorted, because we're going to end up with seven different patches and 20 different versions, and everybody wants to have their little thing, you know, and then also that also dictates our scope of work. You know, that's like
before you stress out too much, that is part of the scope of work. So Katie is doing guidelines, and her recommendation is that the icons are consistent. And I think we're discussing whether we want full color or single color.
Sure, yeah, and right. But I guess for the different departments and how it's integrated is will dictate how much has to happen here. You know, that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
And I will say, in terms of like select board buy-in, et cetera, usually the role, the person who controls the rollout is the communications manager, right? So my job is to help support Kate in whatever she needs to do the rollout. And Katie's job is to make sure that the brand guidelines are really clear and really concise so that everyone is on the same page about how these elements are used.
Okay.
Yeah.
So exactly how many elements do we need to come up with? And maybe I
think that's our question, and with my recommendation is essentially no more elements outside of this chosen icon. There's the potential of the B that I was also going to bring up, but that when you see a town department, it looks something like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
I
guess,
like
you know. Okay.
More consistency makes sense to me. And I think the profile icon on social media, like it's never going to live in a vacuum. It's always going to have the name next to it. So it doesn't have to do all of the work necessarily.
What's your recommendation once we get past like 4 colors, 4 departments?
I mean, I would say repeating them is fine to me, because you don't want them to be, you know, a random pink all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
Which, yeah, you know. I mean, I would say repeating them. I don't think there's a problem with that. This is to talk about your part of the town. and a little nod to what you do, green with recreation, my example,
Mhm.
this is what they're going to use as, their portion, which is
Yeah.
just the name. And I think that'll be like a lot of you, myself, and Danielle, if there is pushback from any department and how we can work through that together. But this would be my rec.
I will also share that so I imagine that we'll have the green, the blue, the orange, and the deep green, and then black and white versions of this. And in my experience as someone who worked in a department when an entire rebrand was rolled out, it felt really good to have agency over our own color choices. So I think it makes sense to give people access to all 4 or 6 options and let them choose what makes the most sense. If they're in the process or if they're in the habit of um, printing brochures that are on white stock and they want a black icon, they can do that. If they are using green stock, they might want to use orange, right? Like, I don't think they'd want to use orange on green stock, but we want to give people a little bit of control over how they use these elements, right? So
Yeah, that's a really good point because the rec department prints their brochure on orange paper.
exactly. So they're not going to use the orange logo. They might use green if it
Yep.
works for contrast, or they might opt to use the black or the
The
white,
black
right?
ones. Yep.
So giving folks that flexibility, they might, we tried to do an audit of all of the things that folks would be using, where they would be using this, but there's always something that's going to come up. Maybe they want a TikTok. Maybe they want to do a sign in the yard, right? Like there are different things that they'll have the freedom to choose what makes sense for them as long as it's within the branding guidelines. And the branding guidelines give people that flexibility.
So is that, Kate, maybe you can speak to this. Is this round logo going to be incorporated into like the first responder patches and stuff like that down the road? Or, I mean, how is this?
No, the first responders patches and the fire department and everything else, like they'll continue to use their official patches with the town seal elements and everything else into it.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's like 18 versions of those. And
Yeah.
so I didn't know how this incorporated into that.
Yeah, no, those embroidered patches, but like, if Steve wanted to have like a t-shirt, a polo shirt to wear to events or something like, but this is the logo we would put on that polo shirt. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. Because it would have to be, they'd have to have some red, white, and blue elements to them because of the first responder element to it. If it
Yeah, no, they're going to keep using their standard patches for that.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to do a quick share of a very quick scroll through of a brand guidelines. And this is a pretty simple one, but just so you guys can see like, the general uses. And here's our big what not to do. I know Molly was calling out certain colors that shouldn't be on other colors, which is very true. So we would have, don't do this to it. And along with here are some examples. So, we'll make sure to address all these things.
I think the question for this group is there any additional feedback on the circle icon, or do you all approve that?
I'm happy with it. Happy to drop that the weather vane thing too, if it's going to make it more usable and legible.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I want to call out just a small picky item, and I think it's more because of the full or the monocolor, the single color version. Is there any way to put a white stroke inside of the outer circle so that there's a little separation from the water and the border, just to like quick see what that looks like?
Kind of like I
The
had
other
done
one,
here.
like the other one had it, and I think it was good to have that separation by a little bit. And I just want to see what that looks like and see if other people agree with that as well. But otherwise, I really like the way that it looks.
Sorry, you all have to watch me. So roughly kind of like this.
Yeah. I don't know what other people think of with that line or without the line. And I think
I
I
think
prefer
I
it with the
think
line.
the thickness is like it's a little, I mean, just my personal thought, the thickness, if it was a little less
Yeah, it looks a little industrial.
like
But
that,
I
that
think
looks
it helps to
incredible.
separate the water from the border element, and especially when we go to just a flat color, I think that'll help out a lot.
Yeah, I like that with the thinner. Yes, so it doesn't actually look like it's part of.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great call, Chris.
But it was an element that Katie already had in the previous one. And I think it was just,
Mhm.
it just fell off, but I think it helped out.
Yeah, you get the gist.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to say with this thinner white line and removing the weather vane? And that would make the barn slightly larger.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I think it looks great.
We have to vote.
If we want to call this a final, I think we
Well,
do. Unless we want to ask for.
do we have a black version? What's it look like when it's black? Or no?
I have not made that yet.
Okay.
We have this old one, so you can
Yeah.
kind of get a
It looks a
sense.
little gray. Or is it my eyes?
What did you say?
Is
A
it,
lot.
is that gray or is that black?
That's the like
Oh, I got you.
color.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, I would make a full black one too.
I think it's going to be important to know, Katie, that we let people know that like there's a difference between black and this dark green, so people don't start thinking that the dark green is a black and use it there. Just to make sure we're calling that out someplace in
For sure.
the branding
We
guides.
need some really fun color names for sure.
Well, yeah, they do
Belchertown
have
block.
down here. So keeping all
Yeah.
these the same. And I checked on accessibility, Kate. So most of them are good to go as far as just general use. And then our font too. Are we okay with, we use this for fun and for the logo, but the primary would be these fonts.
What's fun? Like, where do you imagine that font coming in?
Kind of like if you have, I don't know, I keep thinking of if you have like a 200th anniversary or whatever, the number 200 is in that font, but then everything else, so using it for very specific minimal headings.
Yeah, not any long form copy, not like web copy.
No.
Okay.
I do think that if there is consensus on these elements, it'd be great to get a vote so that Katie can keep going and that we can share what we have so far with Stantec. Because they might want to incorporate some of these elements into their signage proposals.
Is there any more conversation or with just the bee? I saw the bee with the gazebo and stuff. Is there any more? Is there any more options with that, or is that something that's just being put aside?
So I was going to recommend kind of having that in your back pocket. I think I might include it in the brand guidelines, but then, like I'm saying, if you have a big celebration or something very specific where you need like a whole new sub brand, you could potentially pull from that, and or use this when it's absolutely necessary. Something that Molly brought up, which is always important, is the favicon, which is, when you have a bunch of tabs open on your computer and they all have a little icon that we need to create something for that. And I think the bee would be perfect there, because there's no way you would be able to see this guy that tiny. So I'd say we keep it in the back pocket and I'll include it in the guidelines, but for very specific cases or for future cases was my thinking.
I actually think that there's enough distinct coloration in the I don't know what we're calling, but the non-B version that a fab icon, while you would lose a lot of the details, I think it would still be able to I think it would still hold recognizable, especially, when we're looking at the website, like that logo is going to replace that like Massachusetts, now entering Boston sign, and be prominent throughout the site. So I think even that would be recognizable. I know the B would definitely stand out and be clearer, but I don't know.
And we can try it,
I don't necessarily want to shy away from just using that and then forcing in another logo that we now have to.
That's my worry. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm only bringing it up because at what point would you need it, or would it be appropriate to employ? Like just from a need or use standpoint, I don't know. With all the departments and with all the things, it's just if it's going to be put in the guideline or not. At least we have it, or it's part of the discussion. So I don't know.
Well, we could kind of remove any of the B nods, but this committee and Kate knows it exists or it's a thought. And if it's needed sometime in the future, she can circle back to it if she needs to make a mini brand of some sort or something like that. So Nate, I totally get what you're saying. We don't want people to think they could use that willy-nilly as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if we're providing structure and guideline, then we need to make sure we cover all the bases. And I don't know exactly what every department needs, or every option needs, or every website, and that sort of thing. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
Well, I guess then, do we want to vote on using the icon that we established with the white line, removing the weather vane, and approve the fonts and the colors? And then we're kind of ready to run.
How do you all feel about that? Is that
I was just realizing like that Boston has a big B for many, many things, and that would be another reason to not appear to be copying that in any way. Just on that point, but I feel good about everything else.
I'm with Molly. I'm good with everything else. And every time anybody sees B, it's automatically Boston's the first thing that comes to their head.
All right, we can say no B, but just our, remember this logo will be everywhere possible. When not possible, this logo.
okay? I think we can make a motion or I can ask for a motion to vote on what do you call that? The circle? the mini me?
Symbol?
Can I just ask a question on the logo that we approved at the town meeting? Because just me questioning, like, and I don't even know if it's something as an option to change at all. I'm not making a change, just so everybody knows here. But kind of the gazebo seems real tucked down. Is that just me, or what are the thoughts here?
I can talk to my design choice of doing that. Again, kind of going back to it see-through. So I had it sit exactly with the line of the water and the line of the hill, because if I bump it up, you're then going to see any of that tree behind it, which adds a bit more confusion.
What if it was to the left a little, just like a little bit more prominent is my point. It seems really just like tucked away. And I don't know if anybody else is picking up on that in regards to the balance. It just seemed a little bit less prominent right now than it did when we met the other day.
I actually don't see that. I like, excuse me, I like exactly where it's sitting only
Okay.
because of the hill. I think that because of the hill, it looks like it's in the perfect position. But that's just me.
I also, Maureen, my thinking too was to make this as not complicated as possible. So the more it moves to the left, the more of these little openings you're going to see along with the jagged edge of the tree. And that kind of it just creates even more little shapes happening. So that, again, that was my thinking.
Okay, I just, it just seems a little, like the tree in the back seems really small now. So it doesn't even look like almost a tree anymore. And that's kind of like, it looks compacted compared to. Who's moaning? Danielle?
Sorry, my dog is snoring.
I'm like,
mute.
I'm like, is Danielle moaning or is it the dog? That's just kind of like, they just look like they more stood like freely in that, like the other tree doesn't look like, to me, it's a tree, yes, but it's kind of, they look like kind of compacted into that corner. I just wanted to know that if I was the only one who was seeing or thinking that.
I
And
can
with no,
share. Let me share this.
I didn't notice anything until you pointed it out.
So
I'm
here's
a little tied that if that's the icon, if that's the design that was approved, that's the one we got to go with, right?
and the more that we bring this up, see what happens with the trees.
okay,
And we get all these new shapes back here. The bigger I make it, or, then it's like this, then I think that looks less like a tree. Then you make it bigger and it doesn't really make sense as far as perspective to have that tree bigger. And then you get more of these lines, and then you get more orange and you lose the hill. So that was my,
okay.
messing around with it, as you all know that I do. But and even I tried, putting it back here, but that felt weird.
So which one did we go to the select board meeting with? Because the one from Monday afternoon is different than the one that's on the screen today. I'm looking at the one that was on the email from 2 o'clock on Monday, and it looks different than what I just took a screenshot of.
The biggest differences between the two are obviously the refinement and the gazebo.
Yeah, okay.
And then the oak tree is positioned lower.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's what Maureen's pointing out. But
Yeah, I think that's what
I just want to make sure what was approved, because we can't really go back on what.
The problem with, this gazebo is see how tight everything gets.
I understand.
So that was that change. And then I get what you're saying about the tree. But yeah, it was as I made those changes to clean that up, it just created more
No,
light
that's the thing, is I wasn't sure, like,
back
is that
in
was that
here.
the depth? Yeah. Okay, that was my question.
And I see the height of that tree is a lot shorter, it seems like, than it was before. Or is the gazebo? Or the gazebo's bigger? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much license we have to move that around too much, Maureen. Only because
We might not have any license.
yeah, right, exactly. Because it's. I mean, we've already been down this road.
Yeah.
And we've got to move forward with the other stuff. So.
And I was just saying it was different than what we moved forward with.
Yeah, I got you. Yep. Are we okay with, with that? Should we discuss that anymore? I know with Maureen's comment, I just want to make sure that we don't have to do anything else.
I'm just, again, just the definement of the tree in the back. It just, I understand the moving of the spindles and stuff, but the other tree just looks like a bump off the top. And so I guess,
We make that tree higher like it was before when,
like
without
on Monday.
the gazebo, without changing what you've done with the gazebo, Katie, and just make that tree higher so it's more recognizable. I don't know. I I don't want to delay anything, but
Well, not yeah.
So kind of as we do that, then
oh,
again,
yeah,
it
it changes the whole look of it.
mhm.
Yeah, it does. Okay.
Amazing. It's amazing how.
Yeah, it's like I
I
get
don't
what
envy
you're
you.
saying.
I don't envy you. That's
Okay.
a challenge.
But when you make it bigger and actually tuck it back in subtly, it does look like right there. Yeah, that okay. Yeah. But then I would see how it got even smaller now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is how right.
Well,
Okay.
it's done. It's approved.
All right. So we need to go back to the round discussion, right? We need to make sure that.
I think Chris has a suggestion to share screen for a minute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's gonna be a little tough because you guys are obviously going to see an even smaller version of what I'm seeing, right? Because it's the screen share, and so you have just the limited box size. But I hope you could see sort of up here. I created a quick page, and this is something that I could share around. It's a quick document that you just click and drag into a browser tab, and it'll show you, what's supposed to be there. But it is the logo is a little rough to see. You sort of get that green at the bottom, the orange kind of a stripe, and then like a green spike in the middle of it. Obviously a B would be clearer, but we've talked before that Boston is also using a B. It's a little tough to see, but honestly, I think that ultimately it's going to be recognizable once people start like interacting with the logo anyway and seeing it throughout the site. So just figured I'd put that there if anybody wants me to send them like a screenshot of it or the file that I'm using so that they can see it on their own computer. I'm willing to do that, but I figured I'd put this together really quick.
That helps. Yeah. It's really tiny, but it helps.
It's a 5 icon, it's 16 by 16, it's real small. Right, but that is essentially like the smallest it's going to get that ever will see this, and in most cases it's going to be much larger.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we need to have a motion to move forward with the round mini logo.
Can I make a comment before you do that?
Sure.
I was just chatting with Jen. It's okay if you want to change tree placement a little bit because that was not part of our meeting minutes anyway. So if it's important to you to do that, it's okay with us.
Well, okay. I'm thank you for that, and I hope I'm not offending anyone or whatever. But I just feel like the logo we saw on Monday had a little bit more of a prominent gazebo with the tree a little bit. I don't know if we can. Can anybody share a copy of the Monday logo?
It was in the email, I think.
I'll pull it back up now for us.
I'm trying to compare.
So here's the quote final, and here's the Monday.
So see how it is on the Monday, it just, they're separate. Where it looks like they're crouched in together on
Yeah, the
they're
first,
separate entities on and I mean, I hopefully you understand and not, I think you're amazing, but I do
No,
see the separation of the actual
I understand.
element versus being together. Like, and even if the tree, that's how I artistically separating those elements. Like the tree up at the top is not taller than the pine tree though. It, and it's, oh yeah, like yeah. You can see what, like the one at the top has that separation.
So I think the issue is that the gazebo got a little bit larger to be clearer and more legible. So even if you were to like copy paste the exact same tree, we're not going to see the trunk in the same way.
yeah.
But I do think that like it still is clear when it's a little bit larger. I just don't know if you'll see the trunk in the same way without having to then
And
increase the size of the pine tree.
I actually fully love the one at the top. It shows more white element with the spindle. I don't know why, versus the one at the bottom that shows more orange. And I think it's more representative of the actual gazebo uptown than the bottom.
I agree with Maureen on that.
I hate
So
I'm
would
sorry.
would a simple change be to the vertical roof supports? There's two in a part of one that you see in the pine tree. Could those be white? The verticals, because they are in the top one. And
Can we just use the top one because the top one was the one that
I think you can't because of the detail in the railing is if from what I understood.
And there are
Oh.
other changes too. So like the barn is a little bit larger, the positioning of the tractor. I think when we voted on this, it was like, and we voted to have Katie also like clean it up for legibility. So the markings on the barn are a bit thicker and more clear and more legible. So there are
Yeah,
other,
I think they look
yeah,
great. I think it looks that's not even, that looks way better than the top.
just
It's just falling in
top
line
right.
with that separation because it looks compacted.
I don't know. I personally think the gazebo on the bottom is the way to go. It's much more clear what it is.
And I see what both Maureen and Ed are talking about in that the top gazebo has the outline of the roof in white and the verticals in white and everything is emblematical of exactly what's there, and the bottom is a variation of that. But it can't be changed because of the white background behind it.
So,
The white separation.
right. So this one,
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think that's the difference that they're citing there.
right. So I guess you
Yeah,
all,
that vertical's white,
but it's technically not, right? There's a tiny
oh,
sliver
the tiny sliver of orange.
of orange.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what
Okay.
made this so that if we're keeping the gazebo all orange as it technically was here, that it needed to be more obvious. Because the minute you start turning things white, you're actually going to lose.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
So is there a way to,
Oh, go ahead, Maureen.
it's just making the tree the same as it was up top, like separating the entities.
So it would be something like this.
Yeah, like a little bit down. Yeah, just like maybe a
But if we
hair
go down,
or a little bit up, like to show the separation from the tree, like that.
and that's fine. It just adds, the reason I didn't do that is the least of these pieces, because these are all pieces, right? Like when we think about how this is going to be applied to non-digital things, they might end up filling those in anyway. So that's why I did this, just so that we could have that choice.
But that's higher than what it was.
Even that looked better than what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It
even
looks,
like that's better than what it,
yeah. Yes. Right
Okay.
there. That's fine.
Right there.
Because it looks like an actual tree now, where before it looked like it just completely smushed in. Yeah.
Well, I think that's fine. And if Jen and Nicole said it was fine to slightly alter
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think that'll work. Does that work for you, Maureen?
It does. And I'm sorry
Okay.
to have mentioned it, but I just feel like when we're going forward with something, we really just got to kind of speak up before,
Yeah. Okay. So we need to revisit that. We need to revisit the round.
The round stays the same because there's only one tree.
Yeah. Okay. But but we have to vote on it, right? And we have to vote on with that ring that Chris mentioned.
and removing of the weather vane. Yep.
And the weather vane, is that, so do we need a motion to do that? Do we need to vote, or do we just?
Yeah, we likely need to vote. I mean, we could say that this is what it's going to be. We could table it till next week to make sure that we have time to get that final design of it, so that we're not going back to nitpick after that. But
if it works in the timeline, I mean, I'd rather have more time than less to ensure that.
I would argue that if we want to see like the version without the weather vane and with this ring in there, and if we want to give Katie a little time to do it, I'd say that we table the vote, but like make it happen immediately and don't do any of the nitpicking when we get there. Otherwise, we could just vote now.
Yeah, let's
say like this is great. Just remove the weather vane, and that's approved.
So I think if you're able to vote today before we lose quorum in 5 minutes, it would be really helpful so that we can share this with Stantec so that they can use the smaller icons.
I'm
able to vote.
Okay. So I motion that we approve the sub logo as seen on the screen with the weather vane removed and the white line added to it, as we will see in a moment.
Which is there.
Who's seconding this?
I second this.
I'll call a vote to.
Okay, Maureen McGarrett Hall. Yes.
Lisa Ducharme. Lisa Ducharme, yes.
Chris Martin, yes.
Ed Knight, aye.
Kate Nato, aye.
Nate Shattuck, aye. Is that everybody?
That is everybody.
That is everybody. So voted. Okay.
And we do have a meeting on the books for next week at noon to keep plugging along. So no other updates or anything from me.
Do we have anything else to come before us today?
No. Can I just mention something really quickly?
Certainly.
I was on the wayfinding meeting yesterday. You guys are going to be so excited when you see what they come up with. It's really nice.
Okay.
I love that.
That's cool. That's cool. And do we have any public comment to come before us? Letters? Anything? Hearing none. We have a meeting time for next week, a noon time at Wednesday, correct? We have an agenda for that and everything. I didn't look.
No, we don't have an agenda put together for that yet, but I can put one up too.
Okay.
That's quick enough.
Do that, and then
Thank
all
you,
right.
everyone.
Thank you.
It's nice to end on time.
And then all right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
I motion
moved.
that we adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. A vote.
Maureen McGarrett Hall. Aye.
Ollie Robinson, aye.
Kate Nato, aye.
Lisa Ducharme, aye.
Ed Knight, aye.
And Nate Shattuck, aye. I'll get this eventually. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.